Akshay, did you always knew what you wanted to do when you passed out from MBA?
I was all over the place. Saurabh, what about you?
यार मेरे को तो तब भी आइडिया नहीं था, आज भी आइडिया नहीं है.
Confused about your career choices? Wondering what steps to take next? In this podcast called Beyond Campus, Saurabh Garg, founder of C4E, and Akshay Dutt, founder of Unnati, are on a mission to crack open the career success code for the youth. वो बचपन में कहते थे ना, तुम जो चाहे बन सकते हो. So, let's turn the dream into reality.
Hi, this is Ankur. I'm the founder and CEO of Nuclei. We're building a API platform for banks.
It doesn't matter how many times you fall. What matters is how many times you get up and get going. The journey of Ankur Joshi, founder of a fintech startup, Nuclei, is a testimony to the fact that success awaits those who persevere. Ankur graduated from IIT Bombay and started his entrepreneurial journey by launching a quick chain restaurant. He very humbly admits that he has failed multiple times before launching his latest venture. Listen to this candid conversation with Ankur, brimming with practical wisdom and his life lessons.
That point of time when I was doing my 12th in Indore, there was a person from Bombay who was, renting the ground floor of our house. And obviously, him being from Bombay, English again stud thi, like compared to मेरी तो obviously बहुत stud थी. And he used to listen to Brian Adams के songs. I was English गाने तो कभी सुने ही नहीं थे उस time तक. Like I used to remember I used to listen to that. Was it Venga Boys? I don't even remember.
Going to Ibiza.
हाँ, something like that. हाँ. And वो songs कहीं से सुन के मैं आ गए थे. But this guy was listening to Brian Adams. I was like, dude, Brian Adams से अच्छा तो कोई singer ही नहीं है. For me, it was such a nice feeling to have that, he has left his city, he's living in some other city, and he's, like independent है. खुद पैसे कमाता है, खुद सेविंग करके अपने मदर को सेव करके पैसे भेजता है. And that was for me the dream that I need to earn 2.5-3 lakh rupees per year. उतना सैलरी मिल जाए. I will save $10,000. मैं कैसे तो भी करके 10,000 में अपना काम चला लूंगा. बाकी 10,000 बचा के like घर पे भेजूंगा. And that was that, because for me 10,000 or 2 lakh rupees at that point of time was an insane amount of money. So that was my dream. क्या like once I graduate, मेरे को 2-2.5-3 लाख का जॉब मिल जाए. एंड एनीवेज आई वाज 6 मीटर, तो मतलब ऐसे कुछ ज्यादा बड़े गुल नहीं रहते आईटी में. एंड मेटा में था तो आई वाज लाइक यार ठीक है, मतलब ऐसे कोई स्टड जॉब तो रखनी है, 2-2.5 लाख 3 लाख की जॉब मिल जाए एंड देन विल फिगर आउट आफ्टर दैट यार क्या करना है. जब जॉब प्लेसमेंट्स चालू हुए, सो Deutsche Bank came and took a entrance exam. So generally जो day 1 day 2 कंपनीज आती हैं, they just शॉर्टलिस्ट पीपल एंड हैव अ कट ऑफ यार 8 पॉइंट तो मिनिमम चाहिए, 8.5 मिनिमम चाहिए सीपीआई. उसके ऊपर भी लोग अपीयर हो सकते हैं. आई वाज एक्सपेक्टिंग, मैं इंटर आईटी जाने की तैयारी कर रहा था क्योंकि दिसंबर में ही इंटर आईटी फुटबॉल टूर्नामेंट होती है. सो दैट गोज ऑन 20th एंड प्लेसमेंट स्टार्ट ऑन 2nd और 3rd. सो आई वाज नॉट होपिंग कि पहले 15-20 दिन में मुझे कोई जॉब लगी तो मैं तो टूर्नामेंट खेल के वापस आ जाऊंगा, एंड ऑफ दिसंबर में जॉब लग जाएगी मेरे को. Deutsche Bank incidentally came and they took an entrance exam, and that entrance exam was completely based on CAT. पूरा क्वांट और डीआई था, वो मैंने पूरा क्रैक कर दिया. सो दे I think so. I don't know exactly, but I think so. They made exceptions for few people whose CPI was lower, but they did well in the exam. Like fortunately, for some reason, I think in the interview also, मेरा जब first interview हुआ, so obviously I got shortlisted for the interviews in Deutsche Bank. So the first interview हुआ, तो it was taken by a guy who I played inter-IT football with from IIT Kanpur. तो like I knew because 2 साल पहले उसके साथ कोई तो मैच खेले थे हम. तो ऑब्वियसली वो पहचान गया, उसने कहा अरे वाह यार बढ़िया है, तेरे को आना है क्या? मैंने कहा हाँ भाई बिल्कुल जॉब चाहिए मेरे को, कोई वो ही नहीं है. अच्छा ठीक है चल जा नेक्स्ट राउंड में जा. एंड जब 4 राउंड हुआ तो उसमें जो एचआर थी, शी वाज फ्रॉम इंदौर.
अच्छा.
एंड मैंने कुछ तो हीरोगिरी में अपने रेज्यूमे में कैपिटल मार्केट्स के कुछ तो 2 सर्टिफिकेशन लिखे थे. सो मुझे इसके बारे में क्वेश्चन पूछूं, मैंने कहा पूछ तो लो बट मुझे आते नहीं है. आप पूछ लो बट मेरे को मोस्टली नहीं आते. मैंने बस होप में कि यार कोई तो शॉर्टलिस्ट कर लेगा, इट विल लुक गुड ऑन माय रेज्यूमे से डाले थे. सो आई डोंट नो, विद सम लक आई थिंक because in both those interviews किसने कुछ technical banking के बारे में मुझसे कुछ नहीं पूछा. One discussion was completely centered around football, the other discussion was completely centered around Indore, and I got through somehow. तो उससे फिर वो Deutsche Bank में job लग गई. And in parallel, I also got calls from few IIMs. But Deutsche Bank में I think if I remember correctly 10 या 11 या 12 लाख सैलरी दे रहे थे. Obviously blown away कि भाई मतलब ये कैसे हो गया. So I called my dad and told him कि भाई ऐसा जॉब लग गया है. And my dad being my dad and obviously from a middle class was like कि भाई पहली चीज करो लिख के ले लो यार ये. वर्बल एग्रीमेंट पे हाँ मत बोलो. तो लिखवा के दो. And दूसरा ये भी लिखवा के लो कि इलीगल काम नहीं करवाएंगे. Because there is no way anyone is paying you 10 lakhs for doing legal work. तो मैंने कहा हाँ यार आप बात सही कर रहे हो. तो सब जाके पेपर और लाइक लिटरली एक लाइन मैंने पढ़ी, स्कैन करके पापा को भी भेजी और सबको मतलब कि भाई पढ़ लो यार कहीं कुछ गलत तो नहीं है इसमें.
So what was your role at Deutsche?
So for first year I was doing credit analysis for Indian market, and then I was doing debt capital, so corporate debt sales for Nordic and Benelux market, Belgium, Netherlands and Luxembourg. For last year
यहाँ इंडिया में बैठ के you were doing sales. मतलब how did that? Like you would call and
first was India का credit sales, credit analysis essentially credit team में था, and then it was in London. So I used to travel between London and Bombay.
4 साल बाद you decided to move on. So what was the reason?
At that point of time, my reason was that I'm not getting job satisfaction. But like in hindsight now, if I have to think, the actual reason was that all the decisions which were being taken were outside my control. So essentially, I just wanted more control on the inputs or on the ongoing process. Obviously, the outcomes cannot be controlled, but at least the inputs or whatever your effort you are putting in on a day-to-day basis, I wanted more control on those things. I wanted them to be like, I wanted myself to impact those rather than someone else coming and saying कि ये करो वो करो. That is the main reason why I left Deutsche. And obviously I did not see myself growing as an investment banker also, because like whenever I saw some senior investment bankers, it never felt to me, again like nothing against them, it just never felt to me that I could be that person. I just didn't relate to that kind of a job profile, and therefore like in the last year or so I was quite I knew that I had to move out.
So did you think that you'll move out and find some other job, or what was the plan?
So that didn't, like, obviously I was thinking of finding another job. If I have to think back, probably I was looking to get into a consulting firm again, like maybe I was thinking that that will be good for me, and में ज़्यादा travel करने को मिलेगा, घूमने को मिलेगा, सूट पहनने को मिलेगा. So maybe that was what was attracting me. I don't know, but in the meanwhile, like me and few friends started talking, and like we realized obviously beer पे बैठ के बात करते हैं, maximum लोग सोचते हैं at least once in their lifetime कि यार restaurant खोलते हैं. And unfortunately or fortunately, actually like ठीक है fortunately, but we ended up thinking कि यार हम restaurant खोलते हैं और खोलेंगे, और ultimately जाके खोल भी दिया. So me and three other batchmates from IIT, all four of us started a chain of restaurants, and like we
In Bombay?
in Pune actually, not in Bombay, because Bombay from a real estate perspective was very expensive. So we started that in Pune, and शुरू में bootstrap किया, फिर बाद में थोड़ा पैसा उठाया. Like a lot of stumbles, बहुत बार गिरे, बहुत गलतियां करी, and then in the meanwhile we also became, after I think 2 years or so, we also became big enough for us to gather bank loans. So then we got bank loans from a cooperative bank. So then that helped us open 4 more restaurants.
So what was the concept? Restaurant sir?
So we wanted, obviously initially we wanted to open up a bar, कि भाई pub खोलेंगे, and all the details will revolve around egg, because all of us loved eggs. Then we realized that pub खोलने के लिए बहुत पैसे चाहिए, क्योंकि लाइसेंस इतना आसानी से मिलता नहीं है. So it like obviously दारू बाहर चली गई, सिर्फ अंडा बच गया. So we started with items around eggs, and then later on added chicken, mutton, etc., etc. Obviously, it was primarily around a core protein, whether it is beans or paneer or chicken or mutton, and then you have various variants. So it was a kind of a fast casual restaurant, not very big places. Mainly like today, mainly focused on deliveries only. So box या फासोज है ना,
हाँ, हाँ,
उसके
हाँ.
जैसे है.
Okay. So it's still running?
Yeah, it is still running. So in 2015, we sold it off to one of our franchisees. So we had started giving out franchises. Also, we ended up giving up three franchisees only. But one of the person who was running a franchise, he said that he would want to run the whole business. And at that time, we were also looking to move out and like start working on something which is slightly more scalable and not a linear business. So then he bought over the whole business and he's still running it and running well as well.
Okay. Pune based only.
Pune based,
Okay.
yes.
So what did you learn in those 4 years because of which you realized कि ये business से मुझे निकलना है?
So as I said, like don't build a linear business because तुम्हें बड़ा मजा आता है सीखने को बहुत मिलता है. But after a period of time, the growth is very stagnant and at an acute angle.
Explain linear business.
So, like your restaurant business cannot grow 10x in 3 months. It will always grow store by store by store. And to open up a store, it will require a lot of time. Like McDonald's did not become McDonald's in 10 years. It became McDonald's in maybe 40, 50 years, right? So even if they would try to build it in 10 years, they will fail because a lot of processes will fail because of which there will be quality issues, there will be customer issues, and there will be leakages across the board. So you cannot, it is very difficult to build a supply chain or operational businesses at an exponential growth rate. So it will always grow at an acute angle, the revenue growth, etc. So initially you will learn a lot because like, for us also everything was new. Like none of us were from a restaurant background or had any clue about how to run a business for that matter. So everything right from filing a TDS to VAT to getting a food license to getting a fire license, everything was new and exciting at that point of time. But after you have done it for the first time, obviously doing it for the second time becomes quite normal and quite okay. But if the growth stagnates after a period of time, you also start realizing that this is something which I did not probably sign up for. Like, all your plans in year one, obviously you think big, etc., and you like want to paint a picture that you will become a McDonald's in 5 years, and 4 years down the line you realize that you are not even outside Pune right now. Then everything comes down and reality hits that it will remain a lifestyle business, it will remain a linear business, and if you have to do anything scalable, again, it might not be true for everyone, but it was true for us.
Maybe you are blaming the sector unfairly. So there are these companies like there's this Rebel Food and there's the Wow Momos and all these food brands which have like gone national, raised good amount of funding in different niches. Like typically these are like there'll be a biryani brand and there'll be a burger brand and a momo brand. So was it like you were unable to look at it from that kind of an angle of how to scale it up rather than the sector being such कि वहाँ पे it is linear growth?
As I said, it's not true for everyone, but it was true for us that we were unable to scale our business.
So what was the reason for that?
There are many success stories, like you said, like Fasos, Rebel Foods, even Boxes it has scaled very nicely. Like there is Goli Vada Pav and like all the cream chains. Like they have scaled very beautifully. It was just that our inability or we were incapable of thinking in that direction at that point of time and therefore could not grow.
Was it because you were four co-founders? Four co-founders can be difficult to have cohesive vision. Could that be a reason?
Yeah, that was one of the major reasons, definitely. Because like after I think 2 or 3 years, there were a lot of different directions in which we were thinking, and it's easy to point fingers at others and at different reasons. But if I have to be honest, I personally failed at multiple levels. I did not think big. I was not thinking 5 years down the line. If I have to summarize, I was a fool then. If you have to rate me from a businessman's perspective or business planning perspective, I would not rate myself even 1 out of 10. I was so poor back then. If I have to blame anyone, I would blame myself. That probably we did not scale up because of me. And it's again easy to say that what investors were not interested in funding us, etc. But at the end of the day, investors will also fund something which is fundable, right? Where they see an ROI. They are not going to fund just because you call your restaurant chain food tech. in hindsight, we made so many mistakes. Like one of the biggest mistake was that all the four co-founders were from the same background, had the same skill set, and there were no complementary skill sets between us. And whichever skill set we did not know or understand, we just divided it between ourselves and forced each other to learn those skill sets. But again, when you have very similar thinking people, it's very difficult to innovate. You need diversity. You need people with diverse directions or thought processes to come up with new ideas or to innovate on existing ideas. And that was one of the biggest learning during that time.
सबने जॉब क्विट कर दी थी, like all four were in it full time.
Correct, correct. By the end of third year, we were running a profitable business. Like we were making decent profits around I think 18% EBITDA. Like as a lifestyle business, it was very good. One of us or two of us could have stayed back and run the business forever and would have like, made a fortune. But I think the point was also that all of us were ambitious enough to not get stagnated and wanted to do something bigger than what we had built. And that was the reason when we all decided that we have to move on with our lives.
Were you able to make as much as you were making at Deutsche Bank?
Absolutely not. A fraction of that.
तो वो भी एक फटीग आ गया होगा, like कब तक struggle करे.
True. That's true. So like in first 2 years were okay. We survived on our savings, but third year onwards, like one by one, all of us got married also during that time. So that fatigue was there. That like we wanted to provide for our families and like living from month to month and hand to mouth was difficult. It was not easy at all. So true. That was also one of the bigger reasons. But in the fourth year, things became okay. But as you said, like it was okay compared to the previous year. Nowhere close to what we could have earned in some other company for sure.
So who did you have, like a CEO, and वो अब चार लोगों में boss कौन है? वो was that like clear or was it like ambiguous?
बहुत एम्बिगुअस था यार काफी कहानी है उसके पीछे बहुत ड्रामा हुआ उसके पीछे we tried many things we tried की rotational CEO रखते हैं but obviously we were fools. So like a couple of our mentors also suggested that whatever you are doing like it's very foolish because at the end of the day one person needs to lead it and others need to follow and whatever decision whether right or wrong like you have to agree to it and yes you will make mistakes but you can't be running in multiple directions. I'm sure like our egos got in between and it was too late for us to define that this is a corporate structure. We could have done that very early on, but at that point of time we were all batchmates and we looked at each other in an equal manner. So no one wanted to admit that the other could be the CEO and I can't be. As I said, we were children doing very childish things and clearly fools to run that business.
So was the learning के दोस्तों के साथ business नहीं चलाना चाहिए, or was it के position of power के साथ business चलाओ where you are clearly a CEO, और मतलब क्या था learning इस whole experience से?
नहीं ऐसा नहीं है that you have to be CEO. That's not true. Like it is very see at the end of the day you need to have the right person as the CEO. Like today, if there is a better person to run nuclear, I'll happily make that person the CEO because at the end of the day, the title really doesn't matter. What matters is that the company is going in the right direction. So in our case, and it's also not true that you should not start business with friends. But if you are starting a business with your friend, just make sure that both of you are very clear about the objectives and as far as possible keep the business away from personal life and like start business with friends with whom you have complementary skill sets rather than similar skill sets because there is no value add at all. Like initially you might feel that no you trust this person and therefore you are starting a business with them. Trust only runs till will let you go till a certain point of time. After that you guys have to perform in that business and then trust is not going to help you perform in the business. What really matters is your skill set. So yeah, like those are the key things which I took away.
So like you're saying, keep personal life and friendship apart. from the business relationship. ये practically कैसे होता है? If two friends, and I'm again thinking from my own angle where I have a co-founder for this podcast and he's also a friend. So practically, how do we keep our friendship and business separate? Because anytime we talk, it's always about ideas, what to do, how to solve a problem.
So, one thing which I have learned from that experience was, uh, if you are thinking twice before giving an honest feedback to your co-founder, then the relationship is not great. Uh, so, whichever relationship you are in, and that's true for your personal relationships as well as professional relationships, you should be in a place to give an honest feedback. Similarly, in Nuclei, whoever is working with me, if at all I start thinking that should I give this feedback, otherwise this person might feel bad, then that's something which we should like clearly get rid of immediately. That feeling itself, because then you won't be honest with each other. And that was something which was happening with us when I was running the business with friends, where we were not honest with each other. We were afraid of confronting each other because we were thinking about the other's feelings rather than thinking about the business. And that's what I meant, that you should leave your friendship away from your business, because when you're doing the business, you need to be not be emotional about it, and be very very practical and rational about it.
ठीक है, so फिर इसके बाद क्या किया next आपने after rush hours?
So Rashad ke baad, obviously, I kind of started in a rebound. Another startup tech में करना था, तो I started thinking कि यार क्या कर सकते हैं. Restaurant में learning थी that there is a gap between distributors and retailers, and then there were a couple of people who were working in pharmaceutical space. I realized that there was a bigger gap between pharmaceutical distributors and retailers. So wanted to bridge that gap using a technology platform. So we created a platform. Again, this was in Pune, which essentially connected all the retailers with all the pharma distributors, and built that up within, I think, 4 or 5 months. Raised some money for that, but soon realized that, and the moment we started exploring outside, that going to Bombay or Bangalore and figuring out how distribution and retail of pharma happens, we realized that the process was completely different in Pune compared to Delhi, Bombay, or Bangalore. So our platform cannot scale. It might work well in Pune, but again the whole same problem happened, that it was not a scalable business. It would have again stuck to just one geography or one city, and become.
So this was like a Udan for pharma.
Yes, more or less. Yes, yes.
So why do you say it would not have scaled? मतलब उड़ान ने भी scale कर ही लिया ना through different geographies where they would have seen similar kind of challenges.
So pharma, one is very very regulated, and two is very tightly knit. So for example, Udan has obviously now has multiple verticals, but they are more or less commodity products. Pharma is not necessarily commodity. It's in some cases also monopoly business. So, for example, a particular pharmaceutical manufacturer only gives distributorship to two distributors in a city, or in some cases even one distributor in a city. So you need to have that distributor on board, otherwise the retailer won't be able to purchase those items for that particular company. So in order like to have your inventory at 100%, you will have to deal with monopolies in each and every city. Plus the systems on which each and every city was based, the ERPs which they were using were very different. And those ERPs also had their, monopolies in certain parts of the city, or two or three people like ERPs had monopoly in each city. So probably to,
नहीं तो आप कह रहे हो कि फाइट बहुत मारनी पड़ती तो इज इट लाइक कि वो वर्थ इट नहीं था इतनी फाइट मारना मार्केट इटसेल्फ वाज नॉट सो बिग या well my line of thought which I'm trying to follow here is कि जब कोई बिजनेस नहीं चलता तो वो कुछ पर्सनल इश्यूज भी होते हैं बिकॉज ऑफ विच वो नहीं स्केल हुआ rather than just सेक्टर में प्रॉब्लम था so that is the line of thought I'm following.
Haha, array, so you're not wrong. But in this particular case, see, whenever things don't work out, obviously differences crop up anywhere, everywhere. Okay. And in our case also, but in our case, it was not the other way around, that there were differences and therefore things were not working out. Because things were not working out, we all started thinking that kare kya aage, like there was no future. So we tried it doing it between distributors of restaurants and retailers, restaurant chains, and it did not scale up.
You had a co-founder in this case.
Yeah, I had a co-founder who was completely in tech, and like he was looking after the tech platform. I was looking after like, acquiring customers, etc. And
And you were like equal stakes.
equal stake. So we started like figuring out that things were not working out. So one thing which we learned, like which I particularly learned in rush hours, was that in the restaurant business, was that if things are not working out, like just move on very very fast. Don't linger on. So in hindsight, probably I like spent 2 years extra in the restaurant business. I should have moved on earlier. So the moment I realized that things are not working out here, we returned the investors' money, shut down the business, and I decided to then move to Bangalore, because I also realized that scaling a tech business in Pune would be very difficult. Bangalore was more conducive. There were a lot more talent available in Bangalore, and market depth was also bigger. People were also more accepting of any technological solution compared to Pune. So that's when in 2016 I moved to Bangalore.
And how did you do the fundraise for Blaze?
We raised from Bloom Ventures.
So how did that come about?
I think I pitched to around 20 odd VCs, and then we got term sheets from two VCs, and we chose to go with Bloom. So I think for 2 months or 3 months, I was doing up and down between Bombay and Pune every week, twice maybe, going and pitching to various VCs.
So how did you open the doors? Was it like IIT Bombay network helped you? Why did like a Bloom give you a chance to come and pitch? Was it like you had an impressive deck? You used your alumni network? क्या था मतलब?
एल्यूमनाई नेटवर्क तो नहीं था. एक आई एम रिमेम्बरिंग रोहन परांजपे was at Bloom then, and he is my junior from college. So like whoever I knew in various VCs, I was just reaching out to all of them, and like कहीं कहीं से कनेक्शन वनेक्शन निकाल के, वेदर कॉलेज का, इंदौर का, दोस्त फ्रेंड का फ्रेंड का, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. So I was just like trying to figure out how do we reach out to them. And I reached out to him. He said, "चलो ठीक है, आ जाओ मिल लो." And we went and pitched to them. They liked the product. Then like there were I think three or four further meetings. And in the fifth meeting, I think they said yes to us.
So essentially, your approach was networking to reach out to VCs.
Like there were also cold calls, cold emails. Like ultimately, to get something, you'll have to do like hustle तो करना ही पड़ेगा. Like it's very similar to doing sales. Like sales में आज क्या है, they're selling to banks. Like there are so many people I don't know in banks. How do like I maybe sometimes like obviously it's better to have get a warm connect from someone who know them well. But if you don't know them well, like when we went to Indonesia or when we went to Middle East to pick bankers, we knew no one there. So we just reached out to people on LinkedIn or Twitter, or you know got access to their email IDs and like sent a cold email and asked for 15-20 minutes of a phone call or a meeting, and just went and met. Now, obviously, you try that 10 times, you only get one meeting, but that's the conversion rate, and that's similar to like raising funds from VCs also. That you have to go and pitch to as many as possible, and then hope that one of them will like you and like your idea. And like most of the VCs, like that's again something which I believe, that they don't generally back the idea; they generally back the people. So
Right.
ultimately, it's a relationship which you strike, and you decide to be in the same business. Ideas can pivot, will definitely pivot, and change from what you have on day one with respect to what you have on day 365.
So how at a early stage, I guess you were still at a MVP stage when you were pitching, right?
Correct.
तो उस स्टेज में हाउ इम्पोर्टेंट इट इज टू मेक योर नंबर्स की प्रोजेक्शन कि मेरा ये सेल्स होगा, ये रेवेन्यू होगी, ये मतलब वो उस तरीके का बिजनेस प्लान, फॉर्मल बिजनेस प्लान चाहिए होता है, या यू नीड टू टेल अ गुड स्टोरी अबाउट योर कॉन्सेप्ट?
Again, Akshay, that depends. That depends from VC to VC. That depends from idea to idea, person to person. Uh, and then again, there is no standard thing. In our case, We did prepare a business plan, but more or less we pitched the idea, and on which they backed us.
Okay. फिर next क्या किया आपने?
So next, I moved to Bangalore. I came and joined a startup called Tabzo, which was just pivoting or starting the whole Tabzo business, where they were creating all-in-one app, India's first all-in-one app, integrating multiple APIs and creating it as a single app. So very similar to what WeChat or WeChat did in China.
Like it was primarily a chat app जिसमें add-ons थे. Like was that the thing?
Like when I joined, like it had moved on from that phase of पूरा chat करके transaction करने वाला phase. So it was now completely a grid based where you go and transact across multiple categories from a single app without chatting. It was a transactional like tap based transaction like your usual journeys.
हाँ हाँ जैसे जियो का app है वो My Jio वाला अभी. Like it has
Uh,
like multiple apps inside it.
Something similar. So that's what we built from 2016 till 18, and then that got acquired by a e-commerce giant. Uh, that's when I decided to not go there and start on a different journey, start again, start building a different product for a different industry, and figure out what else can be done.
What was your role, Tabzo में?
So multiple roles here. Like I was doing things across the board. So I was obviously for some part I was looking after HR. Then some part I was looking after partnerships, doing sales, doing growth. Product काफी कम किया, but हाँ बीच में product कर रहा था. Tech was the only thing which I did not do. Apart from that, everything else I did.
What was the revenue model? Like they would charge a commission जहाँ से भी
Correct.
transaction हो रहा है. And what was the traction that they were seeing?
So yeah, obviously, if the question is, were we a profitable business? No, we were not. Like that's a question mark which is still there for every such super apps, whether it is PhonePe or Paytm. That how do we make money? The biggest problem is that the layer which has like the layer of population which has money or which has disposable income is very thin. We still don't have that big chunk of higher middle class like China. And till that time, when this big chunk of middle class comes in, it will be very difficult to get your unit economics right from a digital transaction perspective. So because there are multiple charges also on every transaction, there is a payment gateway charge wherever you do a transaction. So that's something which has to be figured out in India over a period of time. Uh, there are obviously other theories around that. If you are doing six things with a particular merchant or particular app, you would want to do other four things also and not diversify and have retain multiple apps. Uh, that again is a theory. Like it's still not proven yet. So we'll see how Paytm and PhonePe, complete their journey and become profitable or show that path to profitability. Right now, it's still not that visible.
So after Tabzo got acquired, you decided to move on.
Correct.
Then what did you do next?
So after that, like there was some time on hand, and like I was just thinking, like literally sitting and thinking that what next should we do. One of the things which became very clear was that there were a lot of mistakes which we had made in the past, and I did not like. It's very easy to say that learn from your mistake and learn from others' mistakes, but generally I realized that I was not learning from them. So we just sat down and I literally sat down and listed down all the mistakes which I had done, and it
Yeah.
became the guiding principles that or guiding rails that these are the things which we should avoid as far as possible. Obviously, it's very difficult to learn and not make that repeat that mistake ever again. But as long as like they were in our face and we were always looking at them, they became the guiding rails for the business. So one of the first thing was which I learned from say my restaurant business or from the second startup, and also from Tabzo, was that we have to think big. And when we say think big, not just think about a particular city or which I did with restaurant and pharmaceutical startup, or think about just one country. Think global. So whatever we build next has to be a global product, not just a local or a national product. So that was one first thing. Second was that whatever we build has to be sustainable in nature and create long-term value.
Hmm.
So instead of
Hmm.
building a startup which you are looking to flip after a few years, you build a business
Hmm.
over 8, 10 years. So build something which
Hmm.
is sustainable, which is profitable, if possible, from day one. And you build
Hmm.
it on top of the revenue which you make rather than build it
Hmm.
on top of the investment, because then again the unit economics will become questionable. So build
Huh,
that.
huh.
And if you're building a business, stay very, very lean from day one. Be extremely
Hmm.
frugal. And especially when things are doing well, or you're making money, in those times definitely stay frugal, because it's very easy to spend money on unnecessary things when you have money. So even in good
Hmm.
times, stay very, very frugal. So these became
Hmm.
guiding principles. Then
Hmm. Hmm.
think long term, whether it is the product which you are building, or whether it is the people you are hiring for the team, or even the
Hmm.
clients who you decide to work with. So
Hmm.
like, you don't want to be in a or get into a marriage with a client where the working relationship is not great, because that will just
Hmm.
increase
Hmm.
stress on you. So even the
Hmm.
clients we have to choose properly, because if you are building a business for the next 10, 15 years, you need to
Hmm.
enjoy your day-to-day activity. You cannot be in a place where you are stressed out every day. So
Hmm.
that,
Hmm.
like, all these things, like even in smaller parts, various parts of the business, you have to think long term and take those decisions,
Hmm.
according to those. And
Hmm. Hmm.
one of the biggest learnings today, if you ask me that, if I look back, what one thing I would change is the amount
Hmm.
of emotional stress I took whenever things were not great. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
like, I would want to reduce stress on a day-to-day basis, and
Hmm.
optimize not for money or for freedom, but for mind space. So the
Hmm.
moment
Hmm.
you have enough mind space, that's essentially luxury.
Hmm.
So that's
Hmm.
something which we are optimizing for. So those essentially became the guiding principle for whatever we wanted to build next.
What about having co-founders? But wouldn't that also have formed a part of your learnings? Like both the previous ventures, they were like co-founder issues which affected the future of it.
Definitely. So this time I was very clear that whoever comes on board has to have
Hmm.
complementary skill set, and we need to make sure that even if there are any issues, we sort them out and be very, very clear and honest about it. So it's not that you won't have issues while running a business, or you won't argue while running a business. What is more important is that you are brave enough to confront each other and sort out those issues. Like, even if that requires someone to take a step back for certain items or certain functions or certain verticals of the
Hmm.
business, that is all fine. At the end of the day, you're trying to create value in the long run. So having to give up something in the short term is absolutely fine, but you should have
Hmm.
the honesty and the courage to speak bluntly with each other, and
Hmm.
give an honest feedback. So that we obviously did not do, definitely did not do in the restaurant business. And that was something which I obviously wanted to avoid in nuclei, and we have successfully avoided that.
Hmm.
Whenever there have been issues, we have confronted those and solved those issues.
So how did the idea of nuclei come about?
It was kind of a natural progression, rather than like, we just moved away and nuclear started parallelly. So essentially, based on these guiding principles, we started thinking that what can we do, or which problems can we solve, and for which industries. So when we
Hmm.
thought about that, we have to be profitable. Uh,
Hmm.
a B2C business went out of the picture, correct? So we started thinking about what can we do from a B2B perspective or B2B2C perspective, and which
Hmm.
industries can
Hmm.
we target. So we started targeting banking, telcos, and insurance. So started
Hmm.
meeting executives there, understanding their problems and what problems can we solve. Essentially, it led us to understand that telcos were going through a rough patch then, so they won't be able to pay us upfront money, and essentially, like, we dropped them in 2018. But now again, we are working with a couple of telcos to figure out if we can solve some problems for them. Between banking and insurance, we realized that banking was slightly, maybe a couple of years ahead of insurance when it came to adopting any digital technology. So it was slightly more ready compared to insurance. So we then just focused on banks and met around 100 odd banks across Middle East, Southeast Asia, and India. And ask them for their problems, which problems we can solve, and and literally build the product or idea of the product from one meeting to the next. And like a particular banker, wanted a particular solution or wanted to solve a particular problem, and you would
Hmm.
just go back and think that in the previous maybe 20 meetings, this came up five
Hmm.
times. So this is
Hmm.
something we
Okay.
can go and pitch to these six bankers. And eventually, the way it happened was that we started working and building the product along with three or four banks, and they also became our first clients. So that's how the product also came about. That's how we are even building today. So we are again going back to banks, asking them which problems they are facing and what. Obviously, it is much more easier to do today now that we are their, partners. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
but it was not that easy early on. But today also we are taking the same approach where we build a product along with them rather than
Hmm.
building and then selling to them.
So, what is the problem you decided to solve for?
So one problem we saw very clearly was that banks were taking a lot of time and effort to integrate with
Hmm.
any third party. So
Hmm.
something which was core to banks, all the core banking products, obviously they
Hmm.
wanted to build in-house and retain in-house. But anything external which they wanted to integrate was taking a lot of time for them.
Give me an example.
Uh,
Like what?
Basically, integration with, say, like we are exploring integrations with healthcare providers right now into the
Hmm.
banking apps, or integration
Hmm.
with, say, an automobile manufacturer right now into the banking apps.
Hmm.
That the customer, instead of going to a automobile, like they can select their like car or two wheeler or whatever they want to buy, and the
Hmm.
banking product automatically attaches with it, and
Hmm.
the customer is
Hmm.
able to buy, purchase, etc. etc. Very obviously, now
Hmm.
that people are afraid of stepping out, these are the kind of
Hmm.
solutions which we
Hmm.
are brainstorming on. Or any, like, think of any third party integration which the bank wants. Like very deep, like it is effort and it is time consuming for them to do it because it is not their core value prop. So we
Hmm.
thought that
Hmm.
why can't we aggregate all these integrations and provide
Hmm.
a single platform to all the banks, whether it is lifestyle services or wealth management services or digital banking services,
Hmm. Hmm.
or any solutions around loyalty and
Hmm.
engagement with customers, that we can create
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
single platform which we can leverage and provide to all the banks across the globe. And
Hmm.
generally banking, like the way banks work, it doesn't differ from geography to geography. So
Hmm.
whatever we
Hmm.
build can scale up nicely across the globe. So that's when
Hmm.
it clicked that we started creating something around lifestyle, something around wealth management, something around
Hmm.
digital banking, and
Hmm.
started selling to multiple banks.
So, give me like a list of services that you've integrated, like companies with whom you've integrated.
So obviously now we are integrating also with Mastercard. Then, for example, we are also powering, say, mobile recharges on many banks. So we
Okay.
have integrated with multiple mobile recharge providers and
Okay.
navigate between them to efficiently provide that service. They have also
Hmm. Hmm.
provided all the travel categories, so a customer can go and book travel
Book flights. Okay.
from the bank's app. And now the second leg of it is that when you are
Hmm.
booking a flight ticket or when you are booking your travel journeys, why not attach a personal loan to it? So it essentially comes a full circle that we are bringing in
Hmm.
third-party APIs and we are bringing in internal APIs of the bank's products
Hmm.
and marrying them
Hmm.
together and providing a package deal to the customer. So the customer is not, thinking about, like, again, the credit card penetration is very low. So
Hmm. Hmm.
instead of doing a goal-based saving, why
Hmm.
not achieve the goal today and then
Hmm.
pay over the next 12 months? So those ideas
Right. Okay.
which we are integrating.
And what is your revenue model?
So we obviously, as a platform, charge a license fee to banks, and
Okay.
then, like, because it's a transactional platform, whatever transactions happen, we also share a cut of that transaction commission with
Hmm.
the bank and retain some commission with ourselves.
So, if someone booked a flight, you would earn a commission on that, which you would share with the bank.
Correct, correct.
And you charge banks like an annual fees for getting all access to all these integrations on their mobile app.
Yeah, yeah. So, like, think about it like a maintenance of the platform, but then the
Hmm.
banks don't have to do a lot of other things as well. They don't have to
Hmm.
partner with these third parties. They don't have to onboard them as vendors. They don't have to manage them. They don't, the biggest thing being, they don't have to do recon with these vendors or merchants. We do it on their behalf. So the bank only set up with us or does recon with us, and then
Hmm.
on behalf of the bank, we settle with all the underlying merchants. So we have automated a lot of these processes and taken that headache away from the banks. And obviously, it's cheaper for the bank to integrate with any third party through our platform than doing it themselves. Cheaper and faster.
So, what are some of the banks that you're working with?
So we're working with the ICICI, SBI,
Hmm.
Canara
Hmm.
Bank, IndusInd Bank, Federal Bank, and in total, I think around 16 banks.
So, like on the ICICI mobile app, the flight wala option that is like powered by you.
Yes, correct. So if you go on shop section inside flights, it will say powered by
Huh.
India at the bottom.
That's amazing. And this is currently with Indian banks only, or you also have global banks as customers?
Two banks right now which are global, like DBS and one bank in UAE, but the rest are Indian banks, all Indian banks. And now, obviously, because of COVID, our slightly sales growth essentially took a step back. But we are now figuring out how to do remote sales, etc.
Hmm.
And like,
Hmm.
we are on the process there.
Hmm.
But yeah, like we're now planning to grow into Southeast Asia, Middle East, and also explore in parts of North America and Western Europe.
When you're going global, how would your integrations be relevant? Like, I'm assuming you would have integrated with Indian travel companies or Indian phone recharge companies. So, if you're going to US, then you would need to again do integrations with the local players there, right?
Correct, correct. So the way we have built the backend architecture is
Hmm.
that it's like fairly simple for us to onboard any new vendor. And going forward, like today, we are doing the integration. Going forward, like once we have 50 odd banks and
Hmm.
like that we have sizable distribution, we will
Hmm.
essentially open up our APIs and any vendor can come and onboard themselves onto our platform instead of us going and onboarding vendors. So that's the way forward also.
How is the role split between you and your co-founder? Like, what do you look after and what does he look after?
So he looks after complete tech. I
Hmm.
look after any everything non-tech.
He was looking after tech at Tabzo also.
Correct, correct.
Okay, okay, got it. And have you raised funding, like external funding, or is it bootstrapped?
Not yet, not yet. Bootstrap, completely bootstrap. So as I said, like we wanted to build a sustainable business. Plus, at that time, we were also not sure whether this will work or not. So, like, I don't want to waste anyone's money, and like, wanted to first be comfortable and confident that there is a product market fit, and we then think about raising funds. Again, like we are not thinking about raising funds even now, but as I said, like we want to run a profitable ship, and we are
Hmm.
running a profitable company.
Hmm. Hmm.
We
Hmm.
want to continue that way.
Hmm.
At some point of time, if the opportunity is right and if the
Hmm.
partnership is right, we
Hmm.
might think about raising, but not right now.
How did you fund it? Because I'm assuming with rush hours and then Blaze, you wouldn't have had any savings in those years. Tabzo was a very short stint. How did you fund it? Huh?
Yeah, yeah. So we made sure that banks paid us upfront. So as I said, like
Okay.
we are
Hmm.
funded by our clients' revenue.
Got it. Which is the best way to be funded. That's amazing.
Well, again, like we were very lucky in figuring this out. It was not something which we were we came up with. Like, it just happened, and we happened to be in the right place at the right time.
So when you cracked your first deal, you already had built the product, or the after the first deal you built the product based on the money that you got from that deal.
We built the product after.
So like you co-built it with that bank based on what they.
Correct.
And how did you navigate the sales cycle? Like, is it a very long sales cycle, and is it like a tough sell or a hard sell, or what is your learning in terms of doing high ticket B2B sales?
So varies. To be honest, it varies from bank to bank or client to client. Uh, and when I say client to client, it actually varies from person to person in a particular
Hmm.
bank also. So, like there are people who will understand your product
Hmm.
immediately, and there will be people who will probably have other priorities at that point of time and may not spend enough time understanding your product. So, you need to be at the right time at the right place. And with some of the banks, where we closed very, very fast, we happened to be in the right place at the right time and therefore got lucky.
So they were already looking for something, and you happened to come along.
more or less. Or we were like solving something which they absolutely needed, and they realized that that is something which they need, or something which they already wanted. And like typically, in Indian bank sales cycle will be anywhere between 6 to 9 months, including all the documentation, etc., which you will have to do. But like we have seen sales cycles, our lowest sales cycle was I think 5 or 6 weeks, and our longest has been 18 months. And it's been only 22, actually, no, now 23
Hmm.
months since we started. Actually, 22 months since we
Hmm. Hmm.
started. So, yeah, like we signed a bank in March. So, that was the last bank which we signed.
And you are like the star salesman of the company, so to say. Like you're the one who would be opening the doors.
स्टार का मालूम नहीं बट हाँ सेल्स करता हूँ सेल्स करते हैं
So, what is your advice to people on sales? Is there like a hack to it, like बेशरम होना चाहिए, या do you have some advice like that?
यार लाइक काफी थंब रूल्स हैं बट
Hmm.
टू आस्क मी फॉर वन आई वुड से लाइक micro courage,
Hmm.
not like as in a very macho sense, but the courage to make that call every day, cold calling karna. A lot of people are scared of cold calling because they are afraid that the other person will unka ego hurt kar dega. And
Hmm.
like you have salesman, you can't have an ego. Like बहुत सारी मूवीज में बताया जाता है कि यार सेल्स पर एकदम स्टड है, बहुत ज्यादा बड़ा ईगो होता है, बट इफ यू
Hmm.
वांट टू सेल योर प्रोडक्ट नाइसली,
Hmm.
you can't have an ego. And specifically if you're starting your own company, you're an entrepreneur, it's you just cannot afford to have an ego. So have that micro courage, make those phone calls, go and meet people, wait outside people's office for 2 hours, क्या हो जाएगा, फर्क नहीं पड़ता इतना. So
Hmm.
that is one thing. And like one ad like which I loved was from Tata Sky, which said that
Hmm.
their tagline was पूछने में क्या जाता है. So a lot of times we are just afraid of asking, like thinking about how bad it will feel to get rejected, and
Hmm.
therefore
Hmm.
we don't ask.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
like many a times, even our existing clients, a lot
Hmm.
of those clients have been signed because we had the courage to ask.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
once
Hmm.
we did that, things flowed, and we gathered confidence and closed those deals. So there's no harm in asking people. So पूछने में क्या जाता है, पूछते रहो, कॉल
Hmm.
कोल्ड कॉल करते रहो, करेज. ठीक है, कुछ लोग गुस्सा होंगे, कुछ लोग तुम्हें बेइज्जत करेंगे. इट्स ओके,
Hmm.
लाइक anyways don't want to work with those people, right? So पता क्या तुम्हें.
In today's scenario, does cold calling work, or is it better to send emails, keep chasing on email, ask for time?
So it depends from time to time. Like
Hmm.
I did a lot of cold calls 2 years back. Today I don't do it. Why? Because
Hmm.
I already know someone who knows that person.
Okay.
So obviously the best way is to get connected warmly with someone who they already
Huh.
know. That's the best
Huh.
possible. But अगर नहीं है वो option, so you are
Huh.
not going to wait for another 3 months to figure out कि यार कोई warm connection करा दे, right? Then you just pick up the
Huh.
phone, figure out the number somehow or email ID
Huh.
and send out a cold email or cold call कर लो. क्या होगा दादा, like I have had people who shouted at me saying कि यार where did you get my number. तो मैंने कहा
Huh.
कि नंबर नहीं निकाल पाता मैं तो मैं यहाँ नहीं पहुँचता ना सर. गिव मी सम क्रेडिट कि यार नंबर निकाल सकता हूँ मैं. तो दे वर वेरी पिस्ड ऑफ कि यार ऐसे कोल्ड कॉल कैसे कर दिया, एंड स्कोल्डेड.
Huh.
ऐसे ठीक है, सॉरी, आई एम सॉरी, मतलब गलती हो गई, नहीं करूंगा कॉल आगे से. नहीं किया कॉल. देन आई लाइक ऐसा नहीं कि हमने कॉल नहीं, मैंने कॉल नहीं किया, समवन एल्स फ्रॉम माय कंपनी कॉल्ड हिम एंड कॉल्ड हिज
Huh.
सेक्रेटरी और सेंड देम an email and figured out a way in into that bank. So like it happens, like people will shout at you, people will scold you, and you just have
Hmm.
to take these things on your chin. Yeah, it's okay, मतलब क्या ही
Hmm.
फर्क पड़ जाएगा.
So, what do you look for when you're hiring salespeople?
Ability to tell stories is something which is very underrated.
Hmm.
So obviously courage is something which is absolutely required if you want to
Hmm.
succeed as a salesperson, but
Hmm.
ability to tell stories, and not just about your product, but
Hmm.
having a very wide knowledge base, and having an ability to build relationship with someone, and talk about multiple aspects, whether it is about history or philosophy or books or geopolitics, because at the end of the day it's not that organization which is buying from your organization, it's that person who is buying from you. So you
Right.
have to build a good relationship with that person. and you won't be able to build that good relationship if you're a boring person, if you're not interesting enough. So you need to have the ability to hold a conversation across multiple topics, have the ability to tell multiple stories, so that automatically that relationship, it becomes easier to build that relationship, not with everyone, but definitely with 90% of the people. So that is something which is very very important. And then also having the ability to get out of a hole or corner when someone corners you. So
Hmm.
that again is sometimes a very underrated, or even something which is not tested properly. So
Huh,
only
huh,
gets tested on the job. So if you're
huh.
able to test that before, like that will definitely help.
So, how do you interview a salesperson then to check these things? कि वो storytelling है, bounce back करता है, नहीं करता है, check कैसे करते हो?
So पहली चीज तो like personally I don't interview anyone. I always have a conversation with people, because
Okay.
I
Hmm.
like, as I said, like we are thinking long term whenever we are even hiring people. So if we are hiring a
Hmm.
person, I
Hmm.
have to believe that this person can work with us for the next
Hmm.
5 years.
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
that is not the case, then there is no point in hiring that person. So हो सकता है 2 साल बाद छोड़ के चले जाए, but at the time of the hiring you should believe that this person will work with you for the next 5 years. So it's and if you have to work with someone for the next 5 years, that person needs to hold an honest conversation with you, not give
Hmm.
a static answer to a static question. So I always chat about like daily life. I ask them what they are passionate about. A lot of times people are surprised. Like for example, yesterday I was taking an interview, and it's a VC interview, and like मैं तो शॉर्ट्स और टी शर्ट में बैठा हूँ, जैसे वीसी पे आया तो उसे सूट पहना हुआ था, एंड आई स्टार्टेड लाफिंग कि भाई लाइक व्हाई आर यू वेयरिंग अ सूट एट होम. तो
Yeah.
आई जस्ट वांटेड टू बी प्रोफेशनल. मैंने कहा यस आई डेफिनेटली अप्रिशिएट इट, बिकॉज यू आर नॉट टेकिंग इट lightly, you are taking it very very seriously, but like, please lose the shoes suit, मतलब इतनी जरूरत नहीं है. So it like I usually have a very casual conversation, and once people open up, you get to understand their story, their life story, and like you also understand their motivation in life. And once they have opened up, once they have let their guard down, it's very easy to realize or ascertain whether they are serious about this role or not, or whether they will fit into this role or not. Like they could be very good, but they might not fit into our culture, or they might not fit into our company at this point of time. So that way it becomes slightly easier for me to understand.
So essentially, your conversation would be like a shorter version of the kind of conversations we have on this podcast.
To be honest, yes, yes.
Okay.
And it's a two-way conversation. Like
Huh.
it would be like if I also start asking you about कि आपकी life की story बताओ मुझे. So it's a two-way conversation where I also tell them about my life story, what I have, and like I also ask them about their, like, obviously ask them about what they have done, etc., etc.
Okay. So, my last question, what is next for Ankur,
For me personally, or for nuclear?
for you personally?
We are thinking of adopting a third dog. So that is a personal friend that is there. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're still thinking, because it's like already slightly difficult to manage both of these.
Yeah.
Like my dog's names are Hazel and Rasna. Like both
Yeah.
of them are extremely hyper, and they just run around, and our whole life revolves around them. Now that both of us are also working full time from home, so they are very excited. So that's on the personal front. On professional front, of course, I want to take nuclear to the next level, where we are properly global, and not just talking about one or two clients uh,
Hmm.
which are global, but
Hmm.
like right now we have 16 odd clients. I want to make sure that by December 21 we have at least
Hmm.
35 banks which are live on our platform across the globe, uh, and like secure ourselves as a company from a cash flow perspective, because a lot of times like people focus on P&L and balance sheet, but for me
Hmm.
cash flow is the primary objective. That as
Hmm.
long as cash flow is there, we have free cash flow, or we are cash flow positive, like
Hmm.
everything else will work out. So that's
Hmm.
something which we focus on, and
Hmm.
that's our goal also, that in the next year and a half we need to reach
Hmm.
there, and then maybe 2.5 years later reach 50, 55, 60 banks across the globe and build products for now. Like I would love to run nuclear for in the long run, no doubt
Yeah.
about that. But I'm sure after maybe 5 or 10 years, there will be someone who will be better suited to run nuclear
Yeah.
than me. I
Yeah.
just have to be honest enough with myself to understand that and realize that there is someone else who can run it better and just hand it to them. Obviously, there are like hundreds of ifs here. For that, we have to survive for 10 years and become, manage to achieve our goals over the years. If all those ifs happen, then I think, like, I'm sure there will come a time where there will be someone else who will be better to run it than me, and I'll hand over.
Beyond Campus is a production of the Podium.in, powered by Career Launcher. If you like this show, then we are sure that you will love our other shows on subjects like entrepreneurship, marketing, books, and drama. Check out thepodium.in for a complete list of all our shows.